That's the light person.
Call the East Cocalico Township Supervisor meeting order. Please rise for pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you have cell phones, please silence them. This special meeting was advertised in Lancaster paper on the 20th and the Reading newspaper on the 22nd. Okay, thank you. Minutes for our April 4th meeting. Any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I make a motion we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Police Department, Chief.
Morning.
Morning.
A couple things. I actually have quite a few things, but I'll get through them. We had the leaders meeting, the regional leaders meeting last night where Officer Fisher did a presentation on basically what he does on a day-to-day basis. It went very well. I think it was well received. He had a printout. It's on the table if anybody wants to pull a copy and take a look at just the different things that he's done or does on a regular basis. So that, I was very happy with the outcome of that last night. Also, Mayor Redkay from Denver Borough, that's his, I guess, executive director position with Real Life Community Services. There is a 2019 Cocalico Addiction Awareness Summit. That is on Thursday, May 2nd from 7 to 9 p.m. at the high school. They're asking the community to attend. And then there's going to be a follow-up meeting Thursday, June 6th at the coffee shop in Denver on Main Street. I can't think of the name of it right now, I'm sorry. So he asked me to sit on the panel at the Addiction Summit. There's going to be some other, I don't call myself an expert, some other experts up there in reference to addiction, answering some questions, and I guess there will be some tables set up with information. So looking forward to that. That's, again, Thursday, May 2nd from 7 to 9.
And this is the second one. They did one 2 years ago.
They did one 2 years ago, so this is the most recent one.
Chief, that's open to parents, students,
That's open
anybody.
to anybody,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
If you have any questions, you're supposed to hand them in ahead of time.
Yeah, and there's some of the pamphlets down there to give the information. Over the month, we did several things. The entire department went on a tour, actually 2 different evenings, of the new UGI building. So that went well. Well received by the officers, their security department, and the other staff and executives there were very welcoming. Just to get the lay of the building in case something happens, which hopefully it won't. One thing we did learn is that the radios don't necessarily work in parts of the building. So I will be working with them. County radio has contractors that can, I call it a booster, so they can put it in the building and go from there. So if it affects our radios, I'm assuming it'll affect the fire department radios, so we don't want that to occur. So it's one of the buildings that we identified that there's an issue. So I will be talking to them and hopefully getting that done at some point. There was a bank robbery April 8th down in West Earl at the Univest Bank in Brownstown, and we were able to stop and then apprehend the individuals that did that using the stop sticks that were, again, through the donation from Dentech. It went pretty smooth, to be honest with you. We were able to determine which car it was. We were able to deflate one of the tires, and the car went off the road probably 1.5 miles down 222, and Officer Kreischer and Officer Savage took the person, or the one suspect, into custody right away. And then from the perimeter that was set up, Officer Kreischer was able to see the suspect running. We got some tips from some citizens down there, and they were able to take the second suspect into custody. So due to that, I have a letter of commendation for Corporal Savage and Officer Kreischer for their work during the bank robbery, and found in the car by West Earl, and they did a search warrant on it, was the $115,000 that was taken from the bank. So that was recovered. I received a call from the head of security from Univest 2 days later, who was very much thanking us for our job well done during that incident and the recovery of the money and the apprehension of the suspects. So that went very well. I also have another letters of commendation for Corporal Sola, Officer Luongo, and Officer McCabe for their actions on April 20th at 1:30 in the morning. There was an individual who was having some issues. He contacted 911 indicating he wanted to take his own life. They responded, and after 15 minutes of a very tense situation, Corporal Sola was able to de-escalate the situation with Officer Luongo and Officer McCabe providing cover for him in that situation. It was involving a gun. So they did extremely well. The individual was taken to the hospital to receive some treatment. So I have another letter of commendation for them. I just wanted to pass that on. It's been a busy week, or a busy month, I should say.
I think it'd be nice if the township also would have.
Well, I have to have you sign these, but yeah, if you
Could they come in and
So you can present it to them?
present?
we can do that.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Second meeting today.
Second meeting in May. Okay, good.
And currently, there's a session going on right now. There was one Monday in here, and another session this afternoon training our officers and officers from, we had some from Quarryville, from Akron, from West Earl, and Mount Joy on the new record system that we're going to be getting. And it's just worked out that some of these officers came here to do the training because we had the facility. So we're in the process. It's going to be a big learning curve, but I think it'll go very well. So,
Good.
any questions?
Any questions of the chief? Thank you,
Chief,
chief.
I have one question, I'm sorry. Sorry, Doug. That sign out on 272, I believe we had that installed way back in September, right?
Pretty close, yeah.
And that's still not lit up.
Yeah.
What's the status on that? Because I mean, Tony, I think,
I may have a little bit more information than the chief does.
Yeah, I don't have.
The latest and greatest, and in fact, PCI had looked at it also. There is a meter for that sign, and I believe for the billboard that's behind it, okay? And some determination as to how it was actually being split up and who was getting charged for what had to be determined. So we know that there's electricity out there, there is a meter, okay? Now, we have to have somebody, I'm thinking of an electrical contractor, to verify that the sign is getting electricity or it is not, and go from there. Now, what we can, I guess it's up to the board, basically, Scott, myself, the board, to determine who's going to look at it and determine why it isn't lit and how do we get there.
yeah, because it's been 8-9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, quite honestly, it fell off.
Well, the old history was way back.
Yes.
It was Bob Roggenberg campground.
Correct.
He paid the bill.
Correct.
You know, now it's split up.
Several months ago, we were approached by the owner of the campground just up the street from us here, and she was getting a bill, monetary bill every month for electric usage because her sign is there also, and I believe they were joined together. So,
It's either that or split the thing up,
Split
and it's
the
gonna
thing.
cost more money to do that.
Correct.
It's better to pay the bill and just split the bill or whatever. Come up with some
yeah.
reasonable rate that we come up with.
Yeah. As you know, the property owner, Mr. Fout, doesn't want to have anything to do with paying any bill on any sign.
Right.
So I guess we'll,
Yes.
That meter was turned off. The meter was actually put into the campground's electric bill. I had the meter switched over, is in our name now.
okay.
Waiting on Tyler because everything's hot. But like you said, there's no juice to it. So Tyler's gonna go up there when he gets a chance to check all the wiring to the sign. I'm hoping it's something right where the signs are split.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's 250 feet from that meter to that sign, if there's something bad in the line there.
Right. Okay.
Probably ought to, and I know you can put him on your to-do list, appreciate that, but yeah, just a little
No,
friendly nudge.
Yeah, he forgets.
Yeah, he's busy, he's busy.
No, he didn't forget, he's got a ton. I mean, because we had some lights here that had issues too, that's on his list too to look at.
Okay, I'll just,
All right, thank you.
thanks.
That's the rest of the story.
Huh?
I'm glad Chris was here because he knows the rest of the story. That's for sure.
Any other questions of the chief or? Okay,
Thanks, Chief.
thanks, chief, thank you. Zoning officer.
Yes, good morning, everybody. You should have a copy of my report. I'll keep it brief, but as you can see, we're gearing up here in the Township Zoning Office at 30 new applications, 22 permits issued, 16 in review, and 23 for pickup. 3 new single-family dwelling units were issued in the month of March. We had no new cases in the zoning hearing board for March, but I did have 2 new cases for April. One is Trackside LLC, which you may know that is the Vertex Mechanical Building over in Stevens. They were coming in asking for some special exceptions in relation to the use of that building. And the second one was Narrows Glen LLC. That is the company associated with Langmore Builders on the Carriage Hill development. They came into the zoning hearing board for some variances on some lot setbacks and whatnot. Just quickly going down through, as you know, the weather has been nice and everybody is jumping the gun, as I like to say. We had a gentleman on the 1900 block of North Reading Road, did a timber harvest without any approvals or permits from my office or from the Conservation District. I halted operations there, and we got the gentleman to fill out the appropriate paperwork. Conservation District was on site along with Ken McCrae and myself to evaluate some of the issues there. We had a similar issue up at 135 East Church Street, clearing roughly an acre of land up there for a new home. The gentleman who lives up in that area was building a home for his son and didn't realize he needed a timber harvest permit. We recently met through a couple of complaints about a farm over on Ridge Avenue doing some construction without permits. Recently met with them last evening, and the gentleman was in my office this morning concerning a replacement of a greenhouse and replacement of a chicken house on site. So we've got that gentleman going in the right direction with the appropriate paperwork. Zoning officer and Mr. Ken McCrae, our MS4 technician, have visited multiple properties throughout the township this past month, getting Ken familiar with some of the sites that we have and what needs to be done. As it stands now, Ken is becoming a pretty good asset here in the township to help us with this MS4 situation we all know we have to deal with, and I appreciate his time. Last but not least, Conservation District was out. We were on site, multiple sites here, High Concrete, and several others, Heatherwoods, and multiple other properties in the township, checking ENS controls on site and a few other things. Smokestown Road, we have a gentleman putting a house in putting a driveway across a creek to access his house. We had a couple of issues there, but Jim Frick with the Conservation District, Brent, myself, Ken McCrae were all out there to help the owner get it corrected and keep moving forward. If they have any questions, I'll be happy to.
Any questions, zoning officer?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
This Trackside LLC.
Yes, sir.
I was in that building for the first time some time ago. I didn't realize that they hold wedding venues and everything there.
That's exactly
That's
exactly what we came to.
They have L&I approval. That was the first time I was in.
As it stands now, the bottom 2 floors are used for Vertex Mechanical.
Right.
The upper 2 floors were used for meeting space for employees and for the company-related issues. Over the last 2 years, they've been conducting small parties and weddings and get-togethers and birthday parties, that type of thing. I was actually attending an event there one time when I made the owner aware of it. Listen, this needs to be approved. So that's why they're there. They came to the zoning hearing board. There is no decision on the case yet. It's going to be answered next month. But they were asking for some appropriate second principal use use not provided for multiple different things. Their lawyer came and presented their case, and the board heard it, and they'll render a decision.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Yes.
Chris, Roadmaster report.
Morning.
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 Since the last time I was here, we finished up the work along State Route 897 with that pipe collapse. There were some comments that Becker Engineering had made that we should do to totally wrap up our part of it. We addressed those. We cleaned and serviced and removed the spreaders from the trucks. Repaired the yards that we damaged this winter from plowing. We worked on 2 swales along Boltzmann Road that we had properties that had problems. 345 Boltzmann Road was a swamp area that the township installed pipe to try and dry the area up. The only thing is the pipe's connected to a person's driveway, and now her pipe's failing in her driveway. So we sort of just patched the area for now. That'll be another project that I'll have when I have time to try and address her issue. Another one was on the backside of Boltzmann Road. The person's complaining because his edge of his road is eroding and is washing debris through his driveway. We had icing there on that backside from his property, and the neighbor above him up the hill were dumping water on the Boltzmann Road. And this winter that became a sheet of ice. The only thing I could do was go out there and basically rip about a foot of sod away from that road edge to try and keep the water off the road. Well, melting, rain, everything else. And it deteriorated his shoulder. We actually fixed that yesterday. We took out what millings we had left at the shed, basically packed that as best we could. I think he's looking for blacktop along the front. I'm not going to do that. If anything, to correct the problem, get the water away from the road. I mean, why should the homeowner be pumping the water out on the road? We repaired 2 storm boxes that had issues in the township. We repaired a sinkhole on Wabash Road. This is the second sinkhole in the past 3 years that we repaired on there. We repaired the yard out back here for the gate installation. The streets were swept in the whole township development areas, April 9, 10, 11, and 12. We didn't have too many complaints from that. Removed the stones from Fishing Creek Park. Last Friday we had UGI, or 2 Fridays ago we had UGI there. They had 20 volunteers. And of course, with multiple times that Fishing Creek flooded last year, my parking lot basically was in the grass instead of in the drive. So we ripped out all the stone, to which I hauled 16 ton of dirt in that we had at the shed. And UGI raked it. They picked up the sticks, they picked up the trash, they sanded the tables. They were great to work with. There were 20 volunteers there that came out and did something that they normally don't do because they're all office personnel. So they were tired. We gave them a good full day's work. They were hurting.
And it was a Friday, it wasn't a Tuesday, so they had to go to work.
So you told them they didn't need to hit the gym that day?
No, they didn't have to go to the gym. They were tired. They actually had pizza delivered for lunch, and they ate pizza, and they asked my guys, it's like, no, we don't want no pizza. When they found out that puts a lump in your stomach for the rest of the day, doing physical work like that. That wasn't a good choice. We actually did have one volunteer that I did not know about. We had a citizen just stop and help. And at the end of the day, the lady from UGI came to me and she asked who that guy was. It's like, well, you know, one of yours? She goes, no. So we just had a citizen randomly stop and help throughout the day. I wish I would have known that sooner to get his name and stuff. That was extremely nice of him.
Just to pause before he goes on, UGI has a program, they pay their employees 8 hours a year to volunteer in the community. So this is not going to be, it's not a once and done with UGI. They're going to be doing this each year in the township going forward, doing projects. They will probably expand it. Chris is not giving himself enough accolades. I was there on the site, and it was very well organized and very well laid out by the road crew. And UGI's contact person there noted that most of the time when they show up at these community volunteer events, the volunteers are standing around looking for work to do, and that was not an issue with Chris and the work that they showed up. They're not usually accustomed to having the work ready for them, the equipment on site, and then ready to hit the ground running, and they will be coming back for multiple projects for years to come at the township. I would like the board to consider having Lisa prepare a letter of thanks.
Absolutely.
And have all 3 board members sign that.
Yes,
I think Chris should sign that also.
Yeah. And just to go a long way to just acknowledging that, but UGI is very community oriented, as they promised. And this is one of the many good things that's going to come from UGI. We did get photos that we can even include them in the newsletter. When it goes out for the fall newsletter, that we can give them a shout out for what they're doing. When we talk about Stony Point Park Community Building in the future, this is laying the groundwork for getting UGI to sponsor a 4-hour or 8-hour work shift for the community building. Have 100 employees show up for the community build. So this is a little precursor to that with what UGI was doing. But UGI is delivering on their promises of being very community oriented. We were very pleased with the work they did, and it was backbreaking work that they were doing by basically raising the wild rock and wild dirt.
Chris, you want to make a recommendation in the letter on lunch?
That's their choice. It's their choice what they want to eat.
You had got tools for them to use, right, from
Yeah, I went and rented. I mean, we had 20 people, so I went through what I had, hand tool wise and everything else, and then I went to Eagle and rented everything to make sure everybody had something to use.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to note that. Thank you, Chris.
We
I'll still prepare a letter for you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
We removed all the debris, sticks, leaves and stuff from around the pool because we took the cover off last week, put the plumbing together. We cleaned up the equipment and took pictures of all the equipment that were put on the municipal bid. So far I've had 3 people stop at the shop to look at the equipment. We installed playground signs for Stony Point Playground.
Those are children at play signs, and
Right.
the real reason was to get the utility companies to go out there and mark their utilities, so we had to focus on that. Our site surveyor is out there, and the site survey should be complete by the end of this week.
Good.
And they'll be able to locate the utilities at the same time.
We're working on repairing signs. The ones that are damaged are just getting faded. We have asphalt maintenance solutions, which is that patch truck coming in probably the 6th of May. He's coming in almost 3 weeks earlier than what we originally scheduled, so he sort of just kiboshed my work schedule now. Gonna try and work around this. On the educational side, I attended 2 classes at PSATs dealing with MS4. I also had a full day of pesticide classes in Lancaster. Troy and Dan attended LTAP classes for signs and safety features on bridges. We all attended a class for bridge maintenance and inspection. And Dan and Brandon attended a safe driver's class. Troy and Brandon tomorrow morning will be attending a stormwater facility operation class in Effort. We have a few more classes scheduled throughout the remainder of this year. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions of Chris?
I have a question for Scott. Should Ken be going to that also, the stormwater?
But there's classes for Ken. I'll be honest with you, that's more the nuts and bolts of how to do facility maintenance.
Okay.
And then we have, Ken is actually, we'll talk about his amendments for stuff in the manager's report.
Okay.
But Ken actually will be getting himself with the Waterway Partners Group, a couple other groups, and they not only doing classes, but it's also just being involved with those groups. It's part of our plan for his role.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Can I go back to Tony for a second?
Yeah.
I was out ramming around this morning early, and I was out at my favorite man cave store, Paul Zimmerman. And I went across Wabash Road, and that corner property on Line Road and Wabash that has the stones around the front, there's a humongous boulder out there on the road, and it's in the right of way. And I'm looking at you to make something happen. There's gonna be an accident looking for a place to happen out there. That's bad. That's bad. Yeah. I know that man that lives there, his wife's handicapped, I think, and he's not gonna be able to pick that stone up. It's gonna take a piece of equipment, but it actually rolled off his property. You guys nodding your heads, so you probably saw it too.
I saw the stones out there. Someone moved on them.
Pardon?
One moved out far.
Yeah, it's out in the road. It's in the road. I mean, that way out in the middle, but you gotta go out around it. And it's right near the corner, so if you get over that lane too far, the guy's coming towards Everett and wants to turn in,
You're feeling it's something he wouldn't be able to lift it?
no.
We're just having telling you, let's just have the road crew get it.
I'll take the loader out there and replace
Yeah,
that.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
just push it
for
back,
safety issues,
find out where he
we're
wants
not
to put it and move it back if you would, please.
I can contact the engineers to let them know what we're gonna do and get that out. They'll probably be appreciative of that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, authorized list of bills.
Okay, you have a list of bills and they are as follows. You have a total general fund of $308,355.39. Total state fund of $705.34. A total hydrant fund of $14,895. And a total recreation fund of $2,064.40. Questions? I'll make a motion, we pay the bills as presented.
I'll second the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Land planning.
Morning. Morning.
It's morning.
As noted there are two items for discussion today under land planning. First one would be the members' first preliminary final subdivision land development plan, and there are some representatives in attendance to supplement discussions that are needed here. The last time you had serious discussion on the project was, I think, March 7th over at the Stevens Fire Hall, where you authorized some waiver modifications. Subsequent to that, we had received and reviewed an updated plan, issued our letter dated April 18th. The applicant has also continued to make progress relative to outside agency approvals. Most recently, there was a letter from the Conservation District acknowledging that the submission for the NPDS permit was technically adequate for technical review, so they'll proceed with technical review of that. So the deadline for action on the plan is May 3rd, which was after your next meeting. In light of where things are standing, in coordination with the township, we're at a point where we would agree that conditional approval could be granted, conditioned upon outstanding agency items being addressed, in addition to any items outlined in our April 18th, 2019 letter. So I don't know if there's any other highlights you want to highlight or things you want to address. Or?
Rick Castagno with Alpha Consulting Engineers and Michael Martin here with Members First. If you have any questions, you don't have anything to add to what Mr. Lee said.
Any questions? No, I don't know.
This is very straightforward. Anything that's at risk for the applicant is if the conservation district throws a zinger in on an NPDS, and they'll just be revising the plans to trust. Otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward approval at this point.
Thank you.
Well, then we go from.
Yeah, the coordination items, as indicated, relate to the Conservation District, East Cocalico Township Authority relative to water and sewer. Sanitary sewer needs to be extended. The extensions within the PennDOT right-of-way, so that brings PennDOT into play. And also UGI has facilities that would be crossed. And as we've experienced on Garden Spot, Freeman Line, and some of these other projects, those crossings can be critical and result in coordination issues during construction addressed. So those are the key items. So if you're all on board, the recommended motion as indicated there would be to grant conditional plan approval to the members' first preliminary
November 1st preliminary final subdivision land development plan, conditioned upon the applicant solving all outstanding items as outlined in the Becker Engineering Review Letter dated April 18, 2019, to the satisfaction of Township Solicitor, Township Engineer, and Township Zoning Officer, including the requirements to obtain NPS permit approval and ENS plan approval from the Lancaster County Conservation District /DEP, and other outside agency approvals from PennDOT, ECTA, and UGI.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Okay. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, and the township has reached out to offer to meet and coordinate the outstanding items, so let us know.
Thank you.
And as always, if there's anything at all
Mm-hmm.
we can do to help you to get things moving, expedited in any way, shape, or form, reach out to Scott.
Or me.
And or to Alan.
Yeah, I gave you my
We'll
card.
be at your May meeting also for some other items.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
Alan will basically be assigned as your liaison for your project.
Thank you.
And that does point out, Tom has advertised for the May 16th meeting to address the proposed text amendment relative to the electronic message board.
Yeah, which he shows right there, right?
Yes.
I do, yes.
Yeah, so if you had any questions on that issue, you can highlight.
I like that.
So,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for putting us on the agenda.
Yep.
the next item would be YQ. This has an extensive history, goes way back even prior to us being involved with the township engineer. They had a land development plan, various land development plans. Different work was completed. Bottom line, there were some wrap-up items and some aspects of the project that were never to be completed. They did not expand certain areas. So over the length of the past year, those items have been identified and slowly chipped away. Now we're at a point where they've completed the last of the items, which was modifying a basin and cleaning up a swale that had been undermined. So we're at the point now where those areas have been adequately stabilized that I would recommend that you consider the motion to authorize release of the remaining financial security currently being held by the township for the land development for YQ Inc. Section 7A in the amount of $20,000 conditioned upon the applicant's contractor removing the remaining temporary sediment controls upon stabilization of the basin disturbance. There's just a minor area near the outlet structure. There's some temporary facilities, but rather than waiting until May, your next meeting to have a motion, this gives us some flexibility to operate sooner.
Just want to commend around this one a little because this was very complex given the ownership structure that exists there. You have 3 different principal uses, you got multiple different owners, you got agreements between owner and tenant, and navigating that, and also giving Mike a little credit too for kind of bringing Tracy Horst on board and helping navigate between all parties and keeping them all focused to getting that done. It was a combination of Tracy, Brent, Tony, all working together to kind of get this one finally to closure when you had parties originally that wouldn't even speak with one another. So it's commendable that we finally got this one wrapped up. There was a reason why it sat out there for as many years as it did. When people sit out there and there's money and they still sit out on the sides, you know there's some issues. Because there was a considerable amount of security originally being held and just staying there. It was like, when you guys going to want to complete your work so you get paid?
Get your money back.
I mean, we're not talking, 20,000 is what's left, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars originally.
And how long has this been going on for?
This is
20
20
20 years, that's what I thought.
It's been for as long as I've been
Yeah,
here.
for to have that amount of money tied up for that many years because of, basically because of personality disputes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's here representing that.
Nobody's here representing that, but they are interested in their voting.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Resolution 2019-06.
This is just a formality. You've already approved the bids at this point for the paving. This is just a requirement of liquid fuels that everything be summarized in a resolution for all the liquid fuel eligible paving projects. So I would recommend you adopt resolution 2019-06.
I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those no, motion carried. Thank you.
Next one is to address the issue with municipal bids and bid awarding and the fact that we had canceled our May 2nd meeting. I think we have another little learning point. We can't, like the ordinances that we adopted for May 2nd, have to be very specific. We have to say the date they're going to be approved. And
Time sensitive, yeah.
yeah, I mean, but it's required by law so that people can actually attend that hearing to see when they're. Municipal bid, we don't necessarily need to be that specific. I mean, while it's rare that we cancel, we've only canceled 2 for a quorum, which has not been here. Every once in a great while it does happen. It just seemed that happened at a perfect store when we had a whole bunch of different things advertised. What the motion would be, that the motion would be to place a notice in the paper at the municipal bid website and the municipal bid website that the May 2nd meeting is canceled due to lack of quorum. The bids will be awarded at the next convened board of supervisor meeting.
May 16th.
And what we will, which instead of saying May 16th, we just say the
Next
next convened board of
Okay.
supervisor meeting. And that's what we will post on the website. And then when we get closer to the 16th, we are sure we got a form, we'll post on the website that we're anticipating adoption on May 16th. But that way, and we could be a little less specific on a number of our motions. We kind of, Lisa, I've been working with Lisa, we leave a lot of our motions now more open-ended. You know, Brett does that too. Because we leave the motions a little bit more open-ended so that we're not tied down to a specific date.
You lock yourself into a date that you can't make.
Right, so so this one, that's why we're making that motion, I just read it out to you for that one, and why it's, it needs to be kept open-ended, so if you would adopt that motion, we appreciate it.
Okay, I'd make the motion that we adopt the motion that Scott talked about with just not a date certain, a time certain, the next meeting.
Public notice, okay.
I second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those no, motion carried. Thank you. St. Paul's EC Church.
Mr. Chair, you're the one that received this one.
Yeah, I talked to Pastor Matt, he wants to be called Pastor Matt, from St. Paul's EC Church. They want to do more outreach to the community. And they'd like to do what they'd like, a carnival fair at the pool May 21st from 6 to 8. They'd like to do like cornhole board, coin toss game, 8-treat soda, ring toss, memory games, and lollipop pick. And they'd like to have the board to approve this. So I will coordinate this with the church if the board feels that this is a good idea.
And the date on your calendar is open?
Yep.
There's nothing scheduled?
No, it'll be a night swim that night. They only want to do it to 8.
Okay, I have no problem with it.
So suggested motion would be for the board of supervisors to approve community carnival night at the Ringstown Pool will be held on Friday, June 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. with St. Paul's Church.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those
Can
no?
Can I
Yeah.
ask, now we approve that, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is it appropriate, or would that be a good time to have one of the police officers there as part of their outreach, or probably not?
I would probably ask them if they'd like that.
Yeah.
Since they're sponsoring this thing, we're just giving permission to do it.
Right.
If they, I
I'll
wouldn't
say
do it without
No.
running it through them.
Can you ask them, are you okay with that, chief?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just having an officer there as an outreach for our department. Okay, thanks, Alan.
Yeah,
And with you adopting the volunteer insurance that also provides.
they have their own insurance.
They have their own insurance, plus we have the volunteer
Yeah,
insurance that current line is.
We he touched base with me about a month or so ago, and they have insurance and stuff too, so, yeah.
So we're in the process for Stony Point getting it, given what UGI is doing, getting people involved with the pool again, having our volunteer landscaper around our township building. We will be eventually addressing where we took out all those bushes. It's good to bring volunteer insurance back. We went a period of time where we weren't having anything else, and we're getting loaded up with volunteers again.
Well, I'm sure there'll be other,
Yeah.
we've already talked about other cleanups, so.
So, yeah, so that will be in place by next week or so. We'll have that for you.
You want to take care of the next letter then?
Yes, the next one came in, and I do apologize, because I usually give you written motions, it's actually sitting on my desk and gone when we got to this point. But this is basically, I don't even know we really needed to have this go before the board, but they made us aware, they're not requesting to close the streets down. They just wanted to give notice to the township that they're conducting a block party. So maybe the motion simply would be to acknowledge the Carriage Hill Development Block Party scheduled for June 1st, 2019, as presented in an email to the township. But they're not calling for closures. Chief is now on Chief's radar screen that there's something being proposed, but it's not, it's a non-issue for attack.
Yeah, it was very considerate of them to do that.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
I know the gentleman, he's very up and up. He's sensible.
yeah, so there really is nothing for us to approve.
I just have motion to acknowledge.
Acknowledge that we received that. Can we add into that motion that we just respond to them and say that we're aware of it, we acknowledge it, and we don't see any issues with it?
Or would we give a response back when you guys acknowledge it every day? They take formal action to notify.
Okay.
Do you want to make?
I'll make a motion, go ahead, I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank
Hope
you.
it doesn't rain on both of these.
No, it does.
I hope so. Yeah, because there were a lot of night swings raining out last year.
Let's just hope it doesn't rain on both.
Okay. Standing old business, MS4. Continue
We've
discussion.
been busy. I don't know if Kevin has anything he wants to add, put him on the spot, but Kevin's been a wonderful asset and has been helping get, at this point, all the paper lined up. The biggest thing now, which Chris is going to be an issue for Chris, is we're now lining up the inland inspection work. So Ken's been working on.
Yeah, there were, so I went through yesterday, unfortunately, which area, there are 4 inspection areas, and our database of them didn't include which one they're in. So I had to go through yesterday and one by one enter them. So I now know that in inspection area 1, there are 317 inlets. And fortunately, of those, 137 are municipal, so a little less than half. And those are the ones that Chris and company are going to have to visit and clean if necessary. So,
Give perspective, we have, what's a rough number of total inlets in the township, roughly?
2,063.
Right. And
Total.
roughly,
Total.
we're anticipating about 900, but we'll see what gets done, is about 900 or so.
I think the count was in the high 800s.
I would have guessed 800 or so, yeah.
I'm sorry, Ken, say that again. There's over 2,000.
There are over 2,000 inlets, stormwater inlets in the township.
Okay.
And some of them are on private property, some of them are municipal, they're in right-of-ways and streets, some of them belong to PennDOT, and some of them belong to the turnpike.
And the important part there is, like you said, 2,000, but of those roughly 2,000, about 800 are township related, the rest are all private.
Right.
Correct.
So that's, as we're progressing, that's one of the things that's in our annual report that we set up and start doing an annual inlet cleaning program, and that's the first step to checking the block by identifying what the inlets are. We did pick the smallest of the 4 zones to start off with to figure out what our extra work rate is, and just as a reminder to the board, we do have a vacuum truck scheduled for Fridays that's budgeted that will go around with the road crew and will suck out the debris in the inlets. It was an innovative idea that Chris came up with. We reached out to one of the utility exploration companies, basically those guys that UGI comes, they core a roadway, they vacuum up the material to get the depth of the pipeline. Their hose actually works very well to dropping down into an inlet at a depth of 20 feet and vacuuming all the debris, especially for the deepest ones that would have been next to impossible for us to get to. So our guys just have to go around. They look great, they come in with a vac truck, they back it out, and then they move to the next inlet.
Do you have the grate pumper? Did you get a grate?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good.
We have a bucket truck.
Yeah.
That might be a little faster.
What?
The
It's on
bucket
the
truck.
bucket truck.
It's on the bucket truck, okay.
No, the bucket truck itself.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like, I said it's on, but it's like a bucket truck, yeah.
Yeah.
It's lift hydraulic, good, yeah.
But it's probably gonna, discussing with the guy says he can get through quite a few drains in a day. If that's the case, it's almost gonna have to take all four of us to go out there. 2 to pop it, clean it, and then the 2 that are following to inspect it, report it, and put it back on.
Because you have to document it.
Yeah, because we
Inspection.
basically have them for 5 days, that's what we have budgeted. I don't know if we'll get through all those drains that,
Hope it doesn't rain.
Hopefully a lot of them need to be cleaned out. A lot of them, presumably, you can just inspect and photograph and know the, yeah, they don't have to be vacuumed out.
it'll be interesting. Basically, the company's anxious because they do most of their work for utilities, and their work schedule is Monday to Thursday,
Right.
so they have open Fridays.
Oh, good.
So I told them all, if this works really well, we might have you as a permanent fixture every year for Fridays to try and keep up with the MS4 program.
And that's actually important to note, because this is the first time we're doing it, so this is gonna be a learning curve. There's gonna be a
Yes.
learning curve and a learning process for this.
A lot of everything that we've been doing with MS4 has been a learning curve and a learning process. We are, with the new permit cycle, the new requirements, a lot of things are being started from scratch in the township. And again, that's not to give kudos to Ken, but he does deserve it because we are creating policies, procedures, and really just getting a good handle on our inventory, which is then starting the next step now, doing the inlets. And we got outfall inspections, we got cleanups around that, we got a slew of stuff. A lot of stuff, it's not just the homeowners who've not been doing maintenance on their facilities for 20+ years. Our public facilities too, unless there's a call or complaint, that's the only time we really come out and in the past would look at them. Now we're being proactive and actually going out and looking at them. So when we look at an outfall pipe that hasn't been inspected for 20+ years, we're gonna find something wrong with it. And then that means the road crew's now gonna start getting a laundry list of repair items that they're going to do. There's going to be, as we talked about shifting the road crew, and we're going to talk about Vantage mowers in a minute, shifting the road crew from doing mowing and doing leaf pickup and stuff like that to doing road patching and stormwater. This is the reason why, because this workload is going to go up significantly on the stormwater side. Plus, Chris already knows the standard that we have for the roads now is going up too. And those 2 things will keep the road crew fully employed at this point and busy, and the other stuff is going to start falling more by the wayside.
Well, and I know over the years, and Chris would remember this, but we did inspections years ago, and I don't know how many inlets had dropped, and we were going to go around and lift them and repair them, and it didn't get done. It really didn't. I mean, we scratched the surface kind of.
Yes.
So we're going to run into those issues too.
And
That whole box dropped, and it's got to be lifted up and reset, and that's time consuming and labor.
Philosophically, it was a lot, and I'm not faulting it, it was a lot of quick fixes in the past from both the roads and the drain structures. We're going to take a more slower, methodical approach where there's going to be permanent fixes instead of quick fixes on both the roads and the inlet boxes. It's a strategy that does not give instant gratification seeing problems being fixed. But over time, as we start catching up, the permanent fix greatly outlasts a temporary or a short-term quick fix. And we will start getting ahead on things. But in the short term, it will not be that gratification of seeing. You're going to see a very long list of problems, and only a portion of that list getting corrected at first.
Right.
And that's because we're going to be looking at doing more permanent fixes.
Well, I noticed in the latest piece, I think it was in the latest one or the one before, one of the newest things they're putting in, and Ken would probably be familiar with it because of MS4, they're putting those like filter socks in the inlets to catch all that bad stuff, so to speak, the road runoff and the oil and everything else that goes down in there. So that's another expense, you know, we can see that coming.
There was one of those installed over by High Concrete on our street, our inlet, right outside where that large basin is. They're putting it right near the new bridge.
So there is one there.
So there's one there, it was full. It has been cleaned out, I understand.
Well, that will save you in the other end. I mean,
Right,
They
it
won't
doesn't-
have to get the truck in.
Yeah, it's this far from the surface rather than
Right.
10 feet
10
down.
feet down, right.
The other thing that both Ken and Chris are working on is developing hotspots, and Brent's very good at that too. But on the inlet side, as we do these inspections, you're gonna quickly determine which is a hotspot inlet and which is not. We already know a couple.
Right.
Like Hill Road's a hotspot inlet, the Denver Road inlets are hotspot inlets that are constantly filling up with debris. This will determine what inlets are gonna have to be inspected once every 5 years, and what inlets are gonna have to have an annual return visit, or even more frequently, once we start doing that. Much more thorough than what we've been doing in the past. And in the past, anyway, we became aware of inlet problems when the road would flood.
Right.
When you knew there was a clogged up inlet, that's when they would go out and they address it. This is gonna be a lot more proactive in determining hot spots and really getting a good handle where our problem areas are.
Good.
Thank you. Yes, Chris?
On your line there, Doug, I did talk to the vacuum
Oh, yeah.
gentleman, and they don't recommend those sill socks.
Is that right?
He said because it's not a lasting item.
No.
He said they're lucky if they last a year, so you're gonna put all that money into a bag that's gonna last you 1 year. Plus, the minute they pull the lid, it falls in the bottom anyway,
Yeah.
so you have to suck it all out and then pull it out. But he had said that it's not worth your money to deal with them because they don't last.
Well, you know, all that knowledge is good. That's
Yeah, because we would have spent money.
right. Yeah. Thanks.
There were areas where we would possibly consider that are gonna be areas where there's a lot of gravel. Like the areas, we talked about high concrete has an underground detention that's got gravel above it. That's areas where you wanna put this still socks because you don't want the gravel making its way into the underground detention. There are some areas where it's a good product, but putting it in our road right of way, indiscriminately just throwing it all over the place, which I know you weren't suggesting, but just throwing it all over the place, it would be a big expense and it really wouldn't do anything for water quality, big picture.
Not the low hanging fruit.
It's not the low hanging fruit. It does have its uses. UGI's got it in their parking lot too, because they have underground detention. And you have to be really anal at that point about not allowing rocks to get into underground detention. But short of that, that's probably not the best use for it. It's more of an ENS control, a temporary control stuff.
Fire and EMS.
Yesterday, we had an EMS working group meeting. RC was at the meeting, and Ms. Scott Aki, myself, and Rick Carpenter. The genesis of that meeting was 2 meetings that have occurred over the last couple of weeks. I made you aware of the Susquehanna Valley EMS meeting, which myself, Rick Carpenter, and Ms. Aki attended, representing the township. And then Wellspan had a regional meeting with EMS, which I could not make. RC attended that meeting with Scott Aki. So we got together to just go over notes about what occurred in those 2 meetings and then have some ideas and move forward. So on the Wellspan side, and RC, correct me if I misspeak, on the Wellspan side, what came out of it was they hired a consultant, and the consultant was available to help EMS companies in general, as they're kind of looking at the big picture of the whole region's EMS program and what they do. The second thing that Wellspan did was they committed to all of the EMS partners, all the EMS companies there, municipalities that were present, that they're not going to just all of a sudden just drop the EMS program and run. They're in it for the long haul to see a solution.
Good.
They also acknowledge that they're bleeding a lot of money at Wellspan. The consultant did kind of point out, and Scott Aki made me aware that Wellspan's model actually seems to be one of the better models for EMS. So there were some misconceptions that I had that may be incorrect. With them having a chase car, it actually seems to be a much more efficient model per the consultant. So that's still gonna be a work in progress. But as we talked about, WellSpan's losing the tune of excess of $500,000 a year running ALS service and transport. So it's just the numbers are not working on the WellSpan side. And they're gonna be charging a surcharge going forward for paid drivers, and they provide all the paid drivers in the region. And we don't know yet what that amount's gonna be. So I don't know if
No, that's exactly right, the summary.
Okay.
Yep.
The second one was a Susquehanna Valley EMS meeting. And to be honest, I'm pretty knowledgeable on EMS. I'm pretty knowledgeable on the reimbursement problems with EMS. So what came out of Susquehanna Valley EMS for that part was not necessarily new news. It was just more news that even the large regional EMSs are having the exact same problems that Reamstown EMS is having, just on a larger scale. They all use the same collection agency. We use Cornerstone that's doing the collection agency. The whole region uses them, so it's not like one collection agency is doing better than another, or someone's got this secret approach. The collection rates are the same regardless of whether it's LEMSA, Susquehanna EMS, WellSpan itself, or Reamstown EMS. Everybody has the exact same collection issue. The second thing that came out of the Susquehanna Valley EMS discussion was actually they have a problem finding paid drivers. And what is happening is, if you look at the hierarchy of healthcare, your EMTs are at the very, very bottom of the pay scale. And you work your way up, you got nurses, doctors, all the way up, and technicians. But your emergency management personnel that run the rigs are at the bottom of the pay scale. And so what is happening is, with it being a very low unemployment rate now, a lot of the people come in and they get the training from EMT to use it as a springboard to become a nurse, or to get into the medical profession and springboard into it. So the retention rate is a year, 2 years before they jump up and they go into a higher paid medical job. So there is a shortage of workers that are willing to do the work. I mean, when you're paying somebody $10 to $14 an hour for the stuff that they see working really bad hours, it's hard to keep people retained in that position. When you're paying paramedics $18 an hour, which is just the next step up, you're still not seeing, you're seeing the same junk, and you can get a much better paying job in the medical profession to go through what they're going through. So retention is actually equally a problem for paid. We're not even talking about volunteers at this point. This is for paid positions, but they can't even get paid drivers at this point. WellSpan has brought that up as a big issue that they're having with their people. But because the reimbursements is so poor and everyone who's bleeding money, you can't pay these guys really what their salary should be, because the numbers simply don't work. That's where the system is truly becoming broken. It's now getting to a point where we can't even find people to operate the vehicles in a paid position because of how poorly the reimbursements are. So then what Susquehanna Valley EMS was presenting, quite frankly, the ask is, the state's not coming up and stepping up to the table. And they've passed some legislation related to, and in the process of passing, not just got approved or not, if they will get approved, it hasn't. They're proposing legislation that when there's a false call, I'm looking at Chief, where somebody basically is making calls, knowing their insurance company's going to pay, payment goes to the person, and then they skip town and don't pay the EMS company. You have people that chronically do that scam. State had legislation, I don't know if they approved or not.
I don't know. I mean, we've charged people with fraud before on that, but if they may be directing a specific charge or.
So it might not have passed it. If it had passed it, it would be Chief's purview at this point. There's legislation in the Senate that's being proposed to go before the governor that would basically make that a felon. That would be give additional policing powers for the police to go after, and give the EMS companies the ability to recoup when somebody does that on purpose. And There was many examples where people were running that scan multiple times a month. And that was basically their source of livelihood. And they were collecting these checks and